Good morning. This is the Formless Podcast number 25. We've been doing this just shy of a year. December will be a year. So it's September, 9 months. We've been doing this roughly 9 months. 25 episodes. What is that, one a week?
That's 3 a month.
Three?
Right? Like a little less than three a month.
Yeah, we've been knocking out pretty good pace.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
That is.
Oh, man. My name's Dustin, and joining me again back from his hunting expeditions and adventures in life is Tyler the Superhuman. Good morning, Tyler.
Good morning.
Man, how was the bow hunt?
So the bow hunt actually it turned into. So we had to adjust fire, and we were supposed to go bow hunting in the mountains. Well, there was a group of 3 of us going to go.
Okay.
And so one of my one friend, he ended up not feeling well, and he had to duck out. He was sick the week before and sick the week of, and so he ducked out. And so, I mean, for good reason. And then my other friend and I, like at the last second, we decided, well, let's not drive an hour into the mountains. Let's just go back to my family's property near here and try to go hog hunting.
Okay.
And so we adjusted fire and went down there and did some hog hunting. And my buddy did get a shot off at a pig at one point, and actually he got 2 shots off and missed, but he still got shots off. So I think it's a successful hunt if you see something, even if you don't get it, but you see something. And so we had a good time, and then I just got back from dove hunting. I spent 2 days dove hunting. In California here, you can get 15 doves per day, morning doves at least. And so I got 15 September on opening day and the second day, and so so it was a good time.
Good times. That's awesome.
So I've been spending a lot of time hunting.
Good for you, man. Good for you. I was thinking about talking about medicine today and the practice and how that relates to martial arts and practicing. So I sell dental supplies. I've done that for the last 16 years, and it's kind of a crazy thing. It's a crazy business. I talk to a lot of doctors and explain to them how products work and how different things work. And, quite often they'll call with problems and not understand why something did or did not work, and so you have to try and kind of explain it to them and things. And it's always a head scratcher because nothing's guaranteed. In life there's no guarantees. In medicine, doctors commonly refer to it as practicing medicine, and it is a practice because you don't know all the variables, or sometimes you don't know them until after the fact. And
correct.
What medicine does to one patient will do something completely different sometimes to another patient. If they have allergies, if they have different health issues than person A. So it's always a trial by error sometimes. Trial by fire. It's not always guaranteed.
It's not fixed.
It's not a fixed point ever. And the more health issues that are involved, the more variables you have inadvertently. But I was thinking about it the other day because a couple of weeks back I was talking to this doctor, and I talked to him on the phone for like 45 minutes about all of these problems that he was having, issues, and dentists in particularly, they don't give you everything you need to know when you go to dental school. And in some places, there's a doctor that I work with.
That's scary.
Yeah, it is very scary. There's a doctor that I know pretty well. He lectures. He has a PhD in he's a ceramic chemist, and he's also a doctor. He's a dentist. He's a doctor of dental medicine. Anyway, he says that if you graduate dental school in California, you could be sued for malpractice if you were to try and use all the stuff that you were taught in dental school in California.
Wow.
Because it's the practice has progressed so much, the schools are playing catch up.
Huh.
The manufacturers of the different dental components that they make they're on another level. Like they're speaking the same language, but they're speaking the same language at different times. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So he claims that the dental schools are about 10 to 15 years behind.
Then behind like the laws.
Behind the actual practice of medicine.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
I'm kind of talking. I'm trying not to throw anybody under the bus there. I don't want to name names and stuff. Hopefully that's as vague as I can be. Why this guy was talking about his different struggles that he was having and different successes. He wasn't like a complete failure, but he had some issues. And he was the type of doctor that I would want to recommend people to because he cared. Not everybody cares the same. He actually cared about what he was doing and was really trying to get stuff right. And in going through this, I just was reflecting back on some of the struggles I had in martial arts. Sometimes I still have them, and others that I know that in talking to different people about it and stuff. And I came to the determination, and you may not agree, and I hope you do, but if you don't, it might make a really good episode here, that martial arts is a practice, just like medicine is a practice. And on a surface level of what I'm talking about is like, you train, you practice, you focus on certain techniques, but when you apply them to sparring or to defending yourself or whatever the case may be, they don't always work the way you were taught. And I think that that's true in so many things, but in particular with martial arts. And if you think about it, like just punching and kicking stuff, you practice on the pads or the bag, or you practice with a partner, and then it comes time to apply that to real life or to a sparring match, and you might do it if you're lucky 1 out of 10 times, or you know what I mean. Not every punch or kick lands. Not every time you try to submit somebody in grappling does that work. They do something you didn't expect. Do something, they moved a certain way. They didn't put their arm in the right position, so you don't have it to grab to do that arm lock or whatever. Yeah. So I don't know. I was just kind of curious to see what you thought. Do you agree? Do you disagree?
I definitely agree. I think the older I get, the more that things aren't as cut and dry, like this is how you do something.
Yeah.
Like, we have lots of ideas. You have an idea when you're going to build a house. I've never built a house, but like the planners and the contractors, they have the engineers and the designers, they have, there's a word I'm looking for, the person that does like the blueprint.
The architect.
The architect, they have a plan, like, okay, this is the specifications and this is the dimensions and this, we're going to do this. Like they have a step-by-step plan, but then you've got so many variables that are thrown in, as far as the funding to get the project done, the manpower, the weather, the ground they're working on, and it's never, you have an idea, like you said, about something, but it's not locked in like A equals B equals C,
it's not concrete.
Regard. Yeah, so like, doctors, I've thought about that for a while. Doctors that have a practice, diseases are ever changing, health conditions are ever changing, so that's that's always in motion. And it's funny, you think about things that are always it's always, you're constantly refining. Like a doctor has a practice and they're constantly refining their practice.
Yeah.
You know, it's never locked in. Just like seasons are never locked in. They're constantly moving towards the next one.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah, because like we're kind of waiting for rain. You know, here it's still over 100 degrees every day for you know, here we are in September, and
we're waiting for
that rain to come
and the heat to go away.
Yeah, that'll be a welcome sight.
But nothing's ever like locked in.
It's not guaranteed.
It's not guaranteed. We would be frozen in time or frozen in our experience and in our knowledge or our whatever. A doctor, you know, he would just be able to fix everything. You know,
absolutely.
If it was definite or what's the word I'm looking for? If it was just definite or complete, you know, his knowledge.
Yeah. Well, and the flip side of that too, like if you, at least in my experience, like every time I've ever sat down and been like, oh, I've got this.
Yeah.
Whether it's martial arts, whether it's life, whether, you know, just about anything. Anytime I've been like, oh, I got that. I know what I'm doing here. Something comes along and is like, do you really have that locked in? How well do you know that? Mm-hmm. You know, usually it's something that makes me question myself, or on a bad day, it'll make me question how well I know something.
There's certain things, like as far as, say somebody that's like the master of a trade, right? Let's call it a trade. Like, let's say like a metal worker from 200 years ago or the medieval ages.
Yeah.
You know, like a metal worker, they probably, you know, somebody that, you know, forged swords, forged shields, like they probably had their trade down to a pretty good formula to where they could do like boom, 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 and they could just knock things out. But I guarantee a lot of those guys, they were still refining everything they were doing, practicing.
Yeah, getting better every time.
Until they passed, you know? And I think that's, we don't ever want to crystallize ourselves. That's what Sensei calls it, crystallize ourselves in our beliefs or our skills. Because when we crystallize it...
Make it hard. Make it
concrete. Like it gets crystallized and it just gets locked in that crystal sometimes needs to be broken up, you know, shattered to allow you know, like in the flow of our skills and our knowledge, if we at some point along that line get crystallized, then it plugs up, you know.
It doesn't flow?
It doesn't flow, yeah. Kind of like a kidney stone.
Ouch. Okay. Yeah, totally. I got like 5 different things in my head right now. I was listening to somebody talk, and they were a martial artist, and they were talking about when they first started training. They were training with Benny the Jet Urquidez.
Cool.
Yeah. And if you don't know who that guy is, you need to do yourself a favor and look him up, because he's a pretty spectacular fighter in the late 70s, early 80s. And he's still around, and he has a school in LA somewhere. He's trained a bunch of different people. And anyway, he was talking about this guy that was doing the interview was talking about when he was first a student, Benny would tell him, you are gobbling up this information. You're trying to take it all in at once. Mm-hmm. He goes, you're eating like a starving man. You're not tasting this. You're not chewing it. You're just swallowing as much as you can, as fast as you can. And you need to like space this out. And he would make him, like he said he got so addicted to training that he was trying to go every single day as many times as he could go. And Benny would be like, okay, you need to take 2 days off, or you need to take a week off, or you need to take a break, and I want you to marinate this for a little bit and then come back. And I thought, well, maybe it's because he was too pushy, or maybe, you know, but what it boiled down to was like, chew on this, think about it. It's you think you have it all because you inhaled it as fast as you could. You tried to get the whole big picture all at once. And on a micro level, you did, but you've missed this whole wide spectrum of all of the different nuances. And there's nuances. And you look at, it's like, you've been out in the woods. And you walk around hunting or working on the property. If you know that property, every square inch of it, probably.
Pretty much, yeah.
But if you go somewhere else, you go out into the woods and you walk a trail, walk a mountain path or something, and then you turn around and come back that same way. Do you find that it's hard to identify things sometimes? Because you're looking at it from a different perspective?
Yeah, it's because you were walking up the mountain and now you're walking
going down and trees look different because you're looking at them from a different way.
Yeah.
Rocks and different landscape looks different because you're looking at it from another perspective. Anyway, that's kind of what this guy was getting to, was like, I was just inhaling this stuff as fast as I could, but I was only looking at it from one position, one place. And when I would try and apply those techniques in theories and thoughts, I only had one perspective to go by. So then if it didn't work based off of that one perspective, he goes, I was pissed off because it didn't go, it didn't jive. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, you're telling me all this stuff works and I applied this just like you showed me, but it's not working. So he was like, well, it may not work that way in every situation. You might need to look at it from a different angle or a different position. And so anyway, that got me thinking about this doctor, that got me thinking about practice. That got me thinking about martial arts. And it's a practice, because how many times have you learned something new and you're like, ooh, I got this new trick. It's all shiny and brand new. And now I'm going to try it the next time I go spar this guy. And it's not working.
It's not working.
It's not working. And then you get into that state where you're like,
I'm going to make this work.
Yeah, I've got this round peg and it's going to fit in this square hole if it kills me. Yeah. You know? Or you get on the railroad tracks and everything, all this stuff's happening and you're just going straight. You know? And it made me think about, through my process of martial arts and my trip through that. And I had my purple belt. And this new guy came into the studio. And he had been training. I don't remember his name. And I might have told this story before, but he'd been training for a while. He'd trained a bunch of different stuff. And I had this pattern that I like to use in sparring. And it was a double-edged sword, because it was working for this period of time. It was working fairly well. And it was a kick, a couple of punches, and it was nice and close. And then a reset and did the same thing over again. Bang, bang. And it was almost verbatim, the same pattern attacks. Well, this guy picked it off right away. No, it wasn't. It wasn't Hovis. It was actually it was some other guy that I haven't... He quit. He moved on and went on down the road. And I wish I knew his name. I can't remember it right now, but I'd like to spar with him again, just because I've learned so much since then. But anyway, he picked me off right away, figured out the pattern, and it didn't work. That was my fallback. That was what I rested on, right? So I had this pattern. I was using it because it was working for me. I didn't work on anything else. I wasn't working on anything else because I had this trick and it was working. So it was rinse and repeat for everybody. Use this, it works. I'm successful with this thing. I don't need to change. Everything's working. I get to this guy, it doesn't work. And I got stuck. I had nothing else to do. So I'm sparring with this guy, and I'm just doing the same pattern over and over again. In the meantime, he's rocking me every time. And he's just looking at me like, you're a broken record. What are you doing, right?
Trying to make this
happen. Make this work. And it's not working. I'm getting frustrated, and I'm stuck. I can't get off this broken path, and I'm just doing the same thing over and over again. It frustrated me so bad that about a couple weeks later, I took a private lesson with Sensei Court. And I'm like, help me, fix this. I don't know what to do. And he's like, do something different, dope. You know? And I bought an hour private lesson and was like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but help me. And it was just, you know, look at it from a different angle. This doesn't work, go to the next thing. And I'm like, well, what's the next thing? You know? And he's like, that's for you to decide. You got to figure that out. You know, and then he kind of helped me do some different things. And it was eye-opening. It made me look at my own, not obtuseness, just obliviousness. Mm-hmm. Like, don't rest on your laurels kind of thing. Don't, you know, I found one thing that worked, and so I was just, that was my paintbrush. I was painting everything with like this paintbrush, and it didn't matter. It worked, so slap that on there, you know.
That's a good saying. This was my paintbrush.
Yeah, yeah, and
your practice needed to be refined.
I needed to practice something else.
It needed to be refined.
Yeah, so I really had to re-examine things and go back through it. Gosh, I'm so all over the place today. You had talked about a while back Musashi. We had talked about the Book of Five Rings. Mm-hmm. I just saw something on that lately. I've been really going down that rabbit hole, rereading the Book of Five Rings and looking up stuff on YouTube about Musashi and things. And you had mentioned a couple episodes back about the practice of two swords.
Yep.
And how you shouldn't gather more tools than what you're going to use, kind of thing. And but you should know how to use the tools you have. And that, I just reflected back on that with this story that I just told.
Yeah, Musashi was talking about that you have your main samurai sword that you use, but that the other guys would have their little shorter sword in its sheath.
And the bow and the spear and just like all of this stuff.
And you look cool, and it feels nice to have all those things. But what's the point of holding that short sword on your hip in its sheath if you're never going to pull it out and use it? What good does it do if you get killed and it's there on your hip and you never pulled it out? Like, you got to pull that tool out and work it at some point.
You know, you can apply that to your own life too. Like, I've got, what we had talked a couple episodes back, I've got a backpack full of books that I always have in my truck. Sometimes I'll go periods of months without reading them. They're just there, and I'm carrying them around, and I'm like, what am I doing with this if I'm not going to use it? So I've really started making myself go through it every few days, go through it, open it up, look at it, pull out different books, read some. It's like, if I'm going to carry this stuff around, I need to put it into practice. I need to put that into, make it useful. Otherwise, it's just dead weight. What am I doing with it,
Yeah.
So that doing that episode a couple weeks back made me really reflect on that myself a lot. Like, when we were talking about Musashi and the swords and the tools, I was like, okay, I've got all this crap that I'm lugging around. What am I lugging it around for if it's just sitting there? I need to...
Makes me feel good that I'm lugging it around.
It makes me feel smart or whatever,
I've got all these
books, I'm a smart guy, but
it's got to be put into practice.
So it made me start cracking open the books again and reading and putting them to use, as opposed to just carrying dead weight around.
Yeah, that's interesting. And constantly like practicing, a doctor practicing, and then refining their practice.
Yeah,
that's like emptying your cup. That's emptying your cup.
I think the good ones do that.
Yeah, that's like absolutely. Emptying your cup, rather than saying, especially, in this day and age we live in, we have certain ideas of how things work and what worked in the 50s, 60s, 70s versus now, as far as business, as far as marketing, as far as, you just pick anything. Mm-hmm. And the whole landscape has changed, and there's some people in different sectors of our lives which things haven't been, like a lot of businesses are still trying to figure out this whole online marketing thing, and it's a constant refinement. Like, it's like there's universal truths that never change, but it's like the method has to change, or the delivery method. That's like the best way I've ever heard it described, is like the message stays the same, but your delivery of that changes with the times. And so that's kind of like with the practice of, a doctor just constantly refining. It's like even society and culture there's certain things that have changed that, your people are still trying to shove that round peg into a square hole from 50 years ago or whatever, versus now. And it's practicing and refining, and it's always going to be a refining method. If we had everything figured out, it would be like, okay, A equals B equals C equals D, and then now it's like, oh, we're all good. We're gonna
well, and like time is constant too, because like in the medical field, you release a product, and generally you have to spend, as a manufacturer, they spend millions of dollars. Research, development, then it has to go through testing, then you have to get FDA approval, at least in the States, but it hasn't been real world practiced yet.
Right.
Okay, so you go through all of this stuff, and then you release it to the world. People buy it, put it into practice, and then they report back, usually to whom they bought it from, and like, hey, you said this product does this, in reality it does this. Right? Yeah. And then you have products that are out 30, 40 years, and everybody under the sun has used it in all these different ways. And they figured out things that the company that developed it and spent all this money had no idea that it did this. Mm-hmm. And then they're like, oh, wow, back to the drawing board, redo all of this research. Oh, yeah, it does do this. It's wild. It's wild. And how many times have you gone through life, you think you know something, you have it down, you know it. You could say about a movie, you remember a scene a certain way in a movie, you watched it 5 years ago, you go back and rewatch it with a friend and it's ever so slightly different, or you see something that you missed the first time. Mm-hmm. Songs are the same way. How many times have you heard kids sing a song or people sing a song and they got the lyrics just messed up? You hear it one way, but it's actually done another way. Jimi Hendrix Experience. There's a song. The lyric is, "Excuse me while I kiss the sky." That's commonly misinterpreted as "Excuse me while I kiss the sky."
Oh, okay.
Stuff like that. You go back and you re-listen to it and you're like, oh, he didn't say that. It's that kind of stuff that I was kind of thinking about. Talking about anyway. Yeah, there's all sorts of variables in that. And we could talk about that for a long time.
That is such a deep subject. Yeah. And we'll revisit it.
Absolutely. I hope we do. Maybe it will be a little bit more coherent. So, question for you listeners. I've been thinking a lot about a bunch of different subjects. Practice was one of them, and I really wanted to talk on that topic and kind of delve into that a little bit, and we'll probably hit that again. But I've been thinking about practice and formlessness and being formless and what that means. So a little bit of homework maybe for you. If you're listening and you want to be a participant, maybe drop us an email at formlesspod@gmail.com. Define what formless is to you. And if we get a few replies, maybe we'll read them on the next episode or an episode down and answer you and maybe agree with you or disagree and tell you why. So define what formless is to you. You can drop us an email, tweet to us at formless_the. The Instagram account is at the Formless Podcast. Oh, and then there's a Facebook group, the Formless Podcast. That's an open group that we moderate, post roughly once a week. I didn't do one today, but I'll get on that later on. Reach out. Let us know what you think. If you want to train with us, come down to Anderson McMurray Drive, Blaine Courts Total Self-Defense. We're here, 3-4 days a week. One of us is usually always here. Come down and check us out. If you have a website you want built, or you need to talk to somebody about SEO service, talk to the fine folks at chromolypro.com. They'll set you up. They do a real good job there. Anything else you want to add?
No, that's it. I'm just interested to hear what people have to say about what formless means to you.
Yeah, that hopefully that hits some topics, and we can talk about that and discuss that. Also, do you have an idea or want to be a guest on our show, or want us on your show? Let us know. Email us. If you have thoughts about practice and the theory of practice, drop us a line too. I read every email. We'll answer every email. We'd love to hear from you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Enjoy the day.